Hey, welcome to Luke and Lewis. We've got a very special guest episode featuring Ryan Long, live from New York. Welcome to the show, mate.
Live from New York, it's Ryan Long. Good figurines in the background. That guy's cool.
Oh, he is, huh? I'm a big nerd.
Yeah.
I love your background. I think that's very in the spirit of the show.
I can't
work out whose background's lame. You can tell you've both fucked, you know?
Yeah, this is actually kind of embarrassing because I guess I already had that up. So
yeah.
I guess it made more sense when I was doing other shows. Now it's just kind of weird, but dude, I've been looking for figurines for my studio, and I was on the internet, like looking everywhere to try to find Steven Seagal action figures. Yeah. And then my friend just inherited a baseball card store. And then in the back room, they had like two figurines, like underneath everything. And they just had one Steven Seagal. It's like an hour and a half away. I went to get it. It's the best.
That's perfect.
So how's New York? It's currently nighttime for you, morning for us. This is the earliest.
What time is it for you guys right now?
Oh, it's not even that early. It's like 9:18 a.m. But I'm just.
Oh, that's still pretty early. Yeah, to do a podcast, it feels early.
I mean, Lewis hasn't slept. We recorded one before bed last night, and we're both wearing exactly the same thing, except that you can tell Lewis clearly has had no sleep since I last spoke to him.
I was just so excited about this podcast, Ryan, that I couldn't sleep.
You're tossing and turning, kicking.
Yeah.
It's because he's moving house today. They're moving to Tasmania because they're fleeing COVID.
Yeah.
Everything that I like, you know, and probably, I don't know if you're there in Australia. So it probably, if you live there, of course, it feels like it's, you know, a hot topic, but that's the number one thing that everyone's like, at least we're not Australia. Like, and I'm from Canada, which is probably up there as bad. But the videos I've seen of Australia, the guy running away from COVID, and he's in an elevator, and they're like, they're making videos like he's a serial murderer. It's just a guy. It is crazy over there.
Yeah, well, that's funny because that is exactly what we thought at the start of this. Everyone in Australia was like, well, at least we're not America. And now we look at America and go, fuck, I wish we were there.
It's crazy. Yeah, I remember when this COVID first started, my buddy, his name's Evan Demeray, and he's like a comedian, and he went to COVID and they put him in the hotels, and someone escaped the hotel and the cops were after him, and it was a huge news story. He was on the news, and then they brought the girl back. She escaped the COVID prison to go party or something, right? And then they brought her back and they locked her door, and they had a guard outside of her door to make sure she couldn't leave her room in the COVID prison. That's so funny.
I have a mate who works at one of the COVID hotels, which is like when you come back from any state that has COVID, you have to do 2 weeks hotel quarantine, depending on where you've come from. And I got a mate who works there, and I was like, what's your job? And he goes, I kind of just like sit in the hallway. And I go, so what? If someone escapes, like, what would you do? He's like, fucking nothing. He's like, I don't want to go anywhere near them. They might have COVID. He just sits there, dive on them? And then he's like, my job's, I guess, to just call security. But I'm like, what are they going to do? He's like, probably not.
But isn't he security? Isn't that why he's in the hallway?
I don't know. He's just paid to sit in the hallway, man. He's
paid to pretend to be security. So you people look at him and go, oh, fuck, I shouldn't run. He's security. And he's like, stupid people.
Well, it's true. It's like if I was just a normal guy sitting in that hotel like lobby, if someone ran out, I'd be like, oh.
You're not diving for anyone.
Yeah, I got cooties, bro.
Well, I want to know, Ryan, like I've been seeing some of these like American news reports and that, and I just want to know like what you think is happening. because
in Australia,
some of it they're nailing, a lot of it they're getting really wrong, and I think a lot of it is designed to scare you guys about what the future of America could be, right?
Oh, you think that? Oh, I see what you're saying. You think New York is kind of like, look at what it is if it starts to be too totalitarian sort of situation.
I think I'm seeing a lot of the right-wing news organizations going, this is what happens when you don't have guns, and this is what happens if you don't vote Trump in 2024, you know? Well,
so I guess that's the question. I'm like, are they right or not? Because I went back, like Canada is, not as, it sounds like not as bad, but they are pretty crazy about that stuff. Like even when I couldn't go back home basically. And then now you have to basically get vaccinated. Then you get a test before you get to the airport. Then when you get to the airport, they test you again. And then you're supposed to quarantine. So it's like, well, why am I quarantining if you just tested me and I'm vaccinated? Like there's all this stuff that doesn't make sense. And it is, you go there and it's like, it kind of is one of those things sometimes where just maybe it is like so politicized that maybe people that you'd be like, oh, it's only these people saying it. But it's like, I don't know. I guess, is it crazy or is it not? I mean, you're the one living there. I don't know.
Well, it's crazy, but I think
people here don't think. Some people think it's crazy. I would say that
some people are stoked about it.
I would say a large majority of people could understand that it's probably the right thing to do because we're at like a 26% vaccination rate in our country.
That's what the news is missing. That's what I think that's the news is
because our country,
skipping over.
Government is incompetent.
Yeah, they didn't. We're on an island, so the government was like, "Oh, cool, we're sweet. We don't have to do anything," and they didn't get ready for it. While the whole world was getting wrecked by it, the government didn't get vaccines, and I think that's what the news is missing. Is like, yeah, we have all of these lockdowns and shit like that, and you see like Americans and English people going, oh, why are they still doing lockdowns? Like, just get vaccinated and live your life. Or if you're not going to get vaccinated, it's your risk. I think the reason we have to do lockdowns is because you can't take that risk of going out. You know, you can't make the choice to not get vaccinated and then take the risk because there are none to make the choice.
People
if you understand.
our age,
why isn't there any?
So people America, our age only got the option to get Pfizer 2 weeks ago.
Why?
They became eligible.
They didn't buy them.
Our government does not have
great
enough
question,
vaccines.
Ryan. Why?
That's literally what everyone has been saying. So everyone's just like, our government is incompetent because they haven't, like, that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's not enough vaccines for everyone in that country.
Like,
it's big news when we get another million vaccines bought in. Everyone's like, oh, might get a chance at one.
Yeah, I was here, a year ago.
Yes.
But then they have all these extra things here now. They're like, oh, everyone has to get a booster and go get a second shot. Dude, this is how much the vaccines are available here. If you go to like a Yankees game, they'll go, you can get in free if you take a vaccine. So they just have like, yeah, literally.
Well, you can get one at the hot dog stand.
And they give you $100, and there's lotteries and it's it's still pretty probably 80% of people in New York, but they want to get higher. But I guess the crazy part that you can tell me whether it's true or not. It seems like this in New Zealand they keep saying, there was like 10 more cases, so you can't the curfew of leaving your cities back on, and you're just like. That's like it's nothing. I feel
like what happened was with New South Wales, so Sydney, they left it, right? I was there and they're like 6 cases a day. And I was like, oh, fuck this. This is going to get really bad. I'm going to get out. And then now they have over 1,000 cases every day, which is a lot because they just like didn't do anything about it and let it get out of hand. Whereas Perth, they have like 2 cases. Then they go into like a 3-day lockdown. And then they have 0 cases for months. And I
think they have to do that because there is no vaccine. They actually don't have
COVID there. So there are places of Australia where there is no COVID, which is probably the only one of the places in the world where there's 0
and they are saying like also once we hit 80% vaccinated, they're going to stop lockdowns, which I think is the right thing to do. I just think the reason why that's
what they said in Canada, and then they were like, oh, just joking, 90%.
Well, we're doing the opposite. They said 80, and then they're like, oh, actually, that seems a bit hard. Let's go with 70.
Right.
We're doing the opposite. We're like, fuck, 70 is good enough. It'll probably be like, if 2 people get vaccinated on Sunday, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I always think that people mess up too. Just everyone that's talking about this, they always just talk about every country and culture like they're the same.
Yeah.
But it's like in Canada, it's like like you said earlier, where if it's popular, the people want, like it's easy to, in America, they don't like that stuff. Like Texas people don't like to be told what to do. Like that whole freedom stuff's like so important for them. In Canada, they're not really like that. So this is like here, it's pretty 50-50 on like the vaccines and all that stuff. Like in Canada, it's not really 50-50. Like most people are pretty pro, the lockdowns, the vax passport, all that sort of stuff.
I feel like that's the same with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends
most
on what
people
the culture's like.
Like understand like, oh, it's probably the right thing to do. And there's people obviously protest and stuff, but it's a very small minority really.
Yeah, and I think that's here. It's not right. That's the difference. Like, if you those places, it's literally 50-50. It's a half the states are pretty, full. The media is, gonna do what they're gonna do, but there'll be even with like Miami, everyone will be like, that I went there, and when COVID got really bad, I went to Miami because it was the most open, and when like New York was like really locked down, I did the opposite way.
Yeah,
but I was just, I don't know, I wasn't like specifically scared of COVID, and I was like I couldn't do stand up, but everything was locked down, and I was just like, we went there for like 3 months, and all of the media would be saying that it's so bad there, but it's kind of, if you look at it, like the places that locked down and the places that didn't, there isn't that big of a correlation for like what has more deaths and all that stuff, I don't think. But I don't know. I'm sure anyone could rejig the numbers to make them look however they want.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like anything fucking looks true unless you're actually like an expert. Like I do this all the time where I look at like, I wonder what climate change deniers think, and I read it and I go, well, fuck, that sounds true. That sounds just as true as all the other shit that I've read.
Well, here's my statistics, and you go, here's my statistics.
Yeah.
I'll get sucked in by like the one side of each story. Like I remember in like grade 6, I watched this documentary about how the moon landing was fake, and then immediately after I watched a documentary about how it was real.
Yeah.
And I came out of both documentaries like, oh my god, it's fake, and then I was like, nah, it's definitely real.
Yeah.
And I was like, I still don't know. I always think about that. I'm like, I don't know, man. Those are some fucking good points.
Well, I think it comes down to the music they choose. Like whoever has the best score to the documentary, that's who I'm going to believe. Like, make me feel something with the music, and I'll believe whatever you want. That's how I got into QAnon.
Nice. Yeah, whoever the protagonist is. I mean, how many people that were, protesting the cops, like watched like a movie where the cop was like the cop was the bad guy cop was the protagonist, and they're sort of like rooting for him, probably not even realizing that, you can have your brain like hacked so easily.
You can. And even, like you film the same thing from a different angle and it looks completely different of like, oh, this guy's a bad guy. No, that guy's a bad guy. It depends on what angle,
I have that with the video. When I do videos, like I do like lots of street stuff. Right? And I, and most of the time you can't always listen to people's criticisms, but like I'll do one every now and then where people will be like, Ryan was being a dick. Like, it seems like I was being a dick.
Yeah.
And I was kind of going back and forth with that when I was doing it. But what I did was I cut out way too much at the beginning of us, like me being nice. So I like, you know what I mean? Like it was, instead of, I was at the time, I'm like, no, I'm trimming fat, but I sort of trimmed out like me ingratiating myself to whoever's watching this video.
You trimmed out all your good characteristics and were just like, this is pretty funny when I tell this bitch to go fuck herself.
Literally, and so you kind of watch it and you're like, they're right, and you're always kind of having that thing. But it's literally, if I just included one more line or one less line, that depends on whether people are like, oh, this guy's an asshole, or this is funny.
Often the bits towards the end, I've done some of those videos. Like I've filmed a couple from Lewis. I filmed that vaccine one that Lewis did. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it went really viral. Yeah, I remember I was there that day, and it started off real nice. And the only footage that Lewis ended up using was the stuff from the last hour of the day, was when we just got fed up and was like, just ask them if they've seen a doctor. Just like straight up go up and ask them. Yeah. Because we were just like, it was... For the first bit, he would like butter all these people up and ask them real questions, and we'd cut all that, and then you got
because it was the protest was so small. It was maybe only like 100 people. Nothing like the big ones you have now. They've really taken off. Like they hustled. That was a long play for them. But it was so small that I was like, oh, if I'm just like outwardly a douchebag, no one will talk to me, and the video's fucked. So I had to like sneak in all the questions for the first hour, and then I'm like, all right, I reckon I've got like 30 or 40 questions. Let's start screaming.
That is such like an art with how to get to the point where you ask the part you want to, but there's also that other part where if it's too much, if you can't like misrepresent what they said at all to her. I feel like cutting out's one thing, but as soon as you start like kind of putting their things in the wrong context, that just becomes like unethical.
I don't think you can do that. Even if it's comedy, I don't think.
I think it might be like illegal as well. That's like actually.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
The moment that all the anti-vax people at the protest realized that Lewis was there to fuck with them, I remember it was when he started interviewing a dog that had like a sign on it, like someone's owner had put like some anti-vax slogan on a little pug, and it was when Lewis started like outwardly like giving the dog the same level of respect that he gave the humans. Then a few people were like, I don't think this guy's from a media organization.
I mean, you got to be up in arms already. If you're at like if you're in Australia at an anti-vax protest, a part of anyone that's coming up to you with a microphone, you're like, what are the chances this guy's for me?
Yeah, I know.
What is
it's the new fighting about Trump. Like literally, I have a video that I'm doing about this, but it's like basically fighting about the vaccine in America replaced fighting about Trump. It's like the same people on the same sides with the same, yelling at everyone, and both think the opposite side is, the worst thing that's ever happened.
It is really interesting that like whatever it is that made you like Trump made you not like the vaccines and stuff like that. And
he
the
likes
opposite is true. And he got him. Yeah. He was a big reason why you fucking have so many, So
people turned on him a bit, like in his own movement.
It is interesting that like you can like him, but then whatever's in your brain that makes you hate them will make you disagree with him.
It really became the cardinal issue to, fight with your family and friends and loved ones about.
So what is it like living in, like, let's be honest, I mean, probably like the most divided country in the world? Well, at least that's what it seems like to us. Is that the case? Do you think?
Afghanistan's looking pretty divided at the moment.
That's true. No, but even still, though, there's like
some bodies are getting divided.
There's still like a.
Oh, American journalists.
Is it weird, like hanging out with? Do you have like a lot of friends who you like?
No.
No, great. Oh, then never mind. No, but do you have like a lot of friends that you like disagree with, just like out at dinner? And then is it weird? Does it get awkward?
Well, you have to, know that like the states aren't divided. Like New York isn't very divided.
Yeah.
New York's pretty on the. So every state's like, what's the population of Australia?
20 to 24 million now. Maybe.
Yeah, like that's the population of states. You know what I mean? So every state's like a little country, and within that state, I've been doing jokes like it really is. You go to half the country, and everyone will say stuff that if you lived in a certain, like if you guys live in liberal metropolitan stuff that if you said, everyone's like you're kicked out of the party. Yeah. The Uber drivers right out of the gate, like, can you believe these athletes won't stand for the flag? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then you come back to Brooklyn, and everyone's like, they won't even let our dogs be trans, and it's like no matter where you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no,
it's
really not that divided here. Like in New York, everyone's
that we don't have like a Texas. We don't have like a place where like people are completely opposing.
No,
like
Canada doesn't either.
Yeah, there's kind of like bits of
they're on the dark web
places where maybe people are a bit less progressive, but it's not like they're completely like there's I guess there's maybe some more. There's probably more racists in Queensland maybe than Victoria and New South Wales, but it's also a lot of just a disparity between like people who are educated, people who aren't, people who live regionally. There's like reasons for that. It's probably like everywhere, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's also mainly just old people as well.
But even I will say there is even in New York or I used to live in Toronto, it is one of those things where like everyone kind of agrees for the most part, but then you don't have to go that far. Like you go 45 minutes out of the city and you're in, and they're back to like the more out there in Texas. Yeah. Like I went to a hot dog eating competition at Coney Island, which is like the hot dog.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. It was like the best, but this was 45 minutes out of the city kind of thing. Yeah. And everyone there was like the liberal mayor went up and everyone booed them and stuff like that. Yeah. And that's like right outside of New York. So I think it switches, but it's basically what the mainstream idea is that, if you went to college here and you started saying, oh, how much you like Trump and stuff, you'd be kind of, people wouldn't like that.
I think the craziest thing about the States is the fact that like most people like or even love a couple politicians. That's crazy to like them at all.
They're like a cult of personality.
Well, like in Australia, like the general vibe is you pick the guy whose ideas you like the most, but you still think he's a dickhead. Even though I voted for him, he's a fucking dickhead. And if he doesn't do what he says, I'm off him.
People will don't
Totally.
really like anyone. Like I think that's what Australia like amused us the most about your election, particularly the Trump one, was people like
I'm Canadian, but he knows that.
Yeah, but like people like cared though. Like people,
yes, sir.
Yeah,
but like our ones, people would just go like, "Oh, they both suck, but this person sucks less." That's the whole.
Dude, can you imagine campaigning
race.
for a guy and you're adult, like you're door to door, like trying to help some politician?
It's pathetic.
It's so nerdy, and I was even thinking that with like Trump or Bernie, any of these people, there is something weird about people when they're in their 30s, because when you see a kid and he's like, I love Michael Jordan and or LeBron James, like it's like, yeah, that's kid stuff. When you see like a 35-year-old man and it's like everything he's posting is like, this guy is such my hero, and it's like you're his age. It's just something so weird about it. So in love, like you're someone's little pet kind of, just like you're doing their bidding. But I guess that's how they're trying to build their career too, where a lot of people sort of build their career off of like supporting a person's movement, I guess.
Do people get around it in Canada? Like around your politicians, or is it the same as us? We're like,
because now it's copied. It's like everything in America seeped into Canada. So they're kind of just the same as here now. So they get around the American politicians, then the Canadian ones represent that. But it is equally as like tumultuous there now, is it? But it wasn't like that when I was growing up.
It might be moving that way. I feel like that's what the media is pushing everyone towards.
They want you to be there now.
Yeah, I think so. They want you to be like super, because anger and divisiveness and hard belief is clicks and money for all these fucking media organizations and news and that's our job, is like what's the funniest thing that will cause a reaction that will make people click and share, which is fine for comedy, but when your job is to like inform the public, that gets a bit dangerous. Yeah,
and it's the same as the way that people take politicians seriously. They shouldn't take the news as seriously. I remember I was watching this documentary, and it was kind of like I don't know what like maybe an activist thing a bit. I can't remember. It was about like crack and stuff like that. But it was a huge part of the documentary was, why the news was wrong here, and the media got this wrong, and the media was all wrong about this, and they all said this, and it was like for the last 50 years. But it was like, but these people, so you think they're right now? Like, but this time they're nailing it. It's like all this, like the same people that will agree that the media's been so wrong for the last 50 years or whatever, and how they work together and all of the conspiracies they essentially covered up and did the government's bidding and all that sort of stuff. But they're like, no, but this time they're in unison, right? Like,
they said a nice thing about my team, so they're telling the truth for now.
Yeah.
So when did you move from Canada to New York?
Right before the pandemic. So
great move.
And you were doing stand-up. Obviously, you started stand-up in Canada.
Yeah. I was doing stand-up for about 10 years, for like 10 years in Canada, and then moved here to.
It's the first time you've sounded Canadian. The whole.
Oh, you want
interview.
me to sound Canadian? Eh?
No, you just said a boot, and it was the first thing you said then that was Canadian.
Yeah, it comes out.
It's very good.
Getting polluted, just with the boys, just getting polluted.
Polluted, I like that.
Polluted.
We might have to adopt that. That's great.
Yeah.
So 10 years.
Yeah. So now I've been doing stand up for like 12 years, I guess. Yeah. But New York's back to normal. It's the only thing is you're supposed to kind of wear a mask, and I guess places ask you for your vaccine card, but like most of them kind of don't. And for the most part, it's back to normal. Capacities are back to normal. All the states are back to normal. Touring's back to normal. Your tour got canceled, right?
I was supposed to be half done now, but I've rescheduled all of the dates for the end of November, and I'm now moving my entire team off the mainland to an island state called Tasmania, so that hopefully I'll get to fly from Tasmania to the COVID-free states where my shows are, do those, go back to Tassie. So I hope they'll happen. Loosebeers.com, it's a bit of a gamble.
You had that the Vice video was like, that was promoting this tour, right? That one.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I don't know if you saw, but Vice just like fired like 50 employees or something.
Oh, really? Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So there's some openings for us.
Oh, good. Yeah, good. I can submit a few stories again. I do want to get Vice again. I bet I'll get him at some point.
They're the funniest one because Vice to me is the funniest one because they're as wild as, you know, Vox or BuzzFeed or any of them, but they used to be cool, which makes it so much lamer.
Yes.
To me.
Yeah.
That's why they're the worst.
I feel like they would be doing better if they went back to what they were doing. Like they were filling a gap that still isn't being filled at all. I guess maybe there's no money in that and that's why they went away.
What was Vice doing? I don't even remember.
Vice was like there was like different phases. They were like a cool, you know, skateboard counterculture kind of thing and back in the day.
Right.
But then they sort of, I guess, popped off becoming the first version of the cliche, which looking back, it was way better. The first cliche was like, you know, I went to Tasmania and smoked crack with a midget. Like that, it was all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like these wild, they kind of invented that.
Sounds like an actual story that would have happened.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
It was all like finding that, you know, I spent a month in the forest with prostitutes in Albania and crocodile or whatever, you know? It was like all that kind of wild stuff.
Kind of just like clickbait that's YouTube. It's kind of just like a Mr. Beast.
Well, that's almost like what
Mr.
the guy it's now Channel 5 is doing, where he'll just go to some like insane rally.
I mean, that is on Vice now. Like that show is his show.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Well, there you go. So maybe they are going back to it. Maybe I'm right.
Yeah, maybe a little. And then now, you know, then they went for like the last 5 years, it was like chairs are racist or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I agree with.
Yeah, I mean, they are. I've seen the way they're looking at colored people of color.
You've been blowing up online recently. Like, I think it wasn't even Joe Rogan was talking about you or
I think I would have heard about that, but someone.
Oh, okay, maybe not.
Maybe it was
I'm
Seth
making that up.
Rogen.
Yeah. No, but I feel like that could be, you know, next to you. It seems like definitely all of the comedians that are in Joe's orbit have been talking about you.
Like so many of my friends have done Joe Rogan, but I just don't know. I've never been to I haven't been to LA lots. I'm going to go soon, but I think with like, I don't know, I'm not going to speak on his thing, but like I don't know him. I haven't met him, and I think that's a big part of how kind of a lot of the comedians. It's one thing having like a scientist on, but it seems like with comedians, it's usually people that
wants to suss you out first. He's really nice.
Everyone I know has said that. They're like, you know, I met him at some festival or, you know, in the Comedy Store, and then he was like, you know.
Yeah, I met him. Andrew Santino introduced me to me, and I had like no right to be in his presence. And he was so lovely and nice, and just exactly the same as he is on mic. And I was like, oh fuck, how strange. That's cool.
It's very cool. I think what you should have done was challenge them to a headlock competition, and the if you win, you get to do a 4 hour.
Well, actually, Ryan, I lost. So
yeah.
Hey, remember when I talked about moving to Tasmania? Well, I'm here, and this episode is sponsored by you. Your support on Patreon makes this show possible and makes us doing crazy things like this to fulfill the show possible as well. So support us on Patreon. Check out Luke and Lewis Patreon. Just Google it. There's a bunch of secret bonus episodes that are only on Patreon. They're exclusive. They're really, really good. Keelan and I just recorded an entire episode on the spirit of Tasmania as we were taking off. On about 3 hours sleep. It's really great, it's really funny, and there's a bunch of other extra bonus content and other episodes there. We'd love for you to watch it and support the show. We've got a Discord group, we got everything. Would you get on it? But it is a secret podcast, so don't tell anyone.
I went back for 5 days just to Toronto, and I just straight up like partied, like a different group of friends. I went out with my, like, you know, friends from my hometown. Then I went out with like a bunch of comedians, then like college friends. I just straight up did like a day drink.
Got polluted.
Just getting polluted. And it was one of those things where, you know, not that many people had seen each other. So it was, we would go to the park and there'd be like a group of 10 people. And then like every time a new guy came in, it was like, oh, you know. My one buddy, he wasn't gonna come through because he was at a cottage with his girlfriend, and he kept seeing the Instagram stories, and he got so like FOMO that he literally told his girlfriend he's coming home, and he brought her home on like the Saturday night to come party. He said his girlfriend sat in the car steaming for 3 hours. They got her cottage weekend short. It was like a bunch of his boys were hanging out in town.
Man, that type of FOMO, that's the type of dude that loses their house on Bitcoin. On the last day. Like, fuck it, everyone's getting rich. I got to put it all in.
I know. Dude, I lost 60 grand on this stock. It was Topps baseball cards, but it was like a SPAC that was buying that. And my buddy Danny that I do the podcast with and everything, he was all in on this. Like, he had so much money and this was like his big play and he was pushing it to me. And I put way too much money in and I lost $60,000 like last week that I'm still.
That's awesome.
Dude, it's tough. Yeah. Like it was. Like it was one of those things I like woke up almost like kind of thinking it was a dream, and then I looked at my phone and it wasn't again.
Did Lewis has started to buy like NFTs, like these little brick things.
Yeah.
How much more? Like real? Are you really investing or are you dropping like a few $100?
No, he bought, well, I mean, for us, like that's a lot of money. He bought like a
$200?
$1,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
He put 1,000 into like this thing. No, I think it's a lot of money. You know why I think it's a lot of money? Because it doesn't exist. You're putting money into a JPEG. That's a lot of money for like a PNG.
Yeah.
What did you buy?
I bought a picture of a brick for $900.
What a waste of money.
No, just a stone brick with a green background, and I'm happy to report, Luke, that I'm going to piss you off with this. That brick is now worth $7,000.
Okay, that makes
stop it. Really?
Yeah.
But who dictates? It's just like the market. Like who dictates that this is now
people
worth
who have made
$7,000?
like millions out of cryptocurrency and have no idea what to buy. It's like, you know what it is? It's like a digital flex. Buying an NFT and changing your profile picture to a picture of it. It's like the new posting a Rolex onto your Instagram story.
Yeah,
like that's kind of how I'm seeing it. I don't know if it's gonna last. Like.
Have you sold it yet?
Nah, I'm waiting until it goes to 10, baby.
Oh my God.
Well,
I'm a big believer in the brick.
It might get up. I mean, it's pretty early in this game, but yeah, who knows where it's going to go. But like so many bands are releasing their albums that way and, hip hop artists and stuff. So
I think it's cool. I think that whether or not the shit that I'm buying is going to last, I think the technology will, because it's the only way to verify ownership of a digital asset, and the world is going digital. So to me, it just kind of makes sense. Like it's the only way to prove you own something that lives in a world that we're just moving further and further towards. I
think that more importantly, that's the kind of stuff you need to be saying to women at bars.
Yeah. Absolutely.
This is the way the world's going. It's a digital asset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I had a
classic meme of the guy yelling at a girl at a bar.
Yeah, you're really backing up that figurine in the background, aren't you?
Oh yeah. No, I had an argument with one of my friends. He's got like crazy money, right? This guy that I know online, he's got stupid money, and he's like real anti NFTs. He goes, man, I'm telling you, it's not going to work. And you know why? I'm like, why? And he goes, rich people, why do they buy Ferraris? I'm like, because they like the cars. He goes, no, to get pussy. I'm like, correct. That's true. Big motivator. Yeah. And he goes, no one, and I mean no one, is getting pussy out of a picture of a cat. I'm like, okay, I'm selling everything.
Yeah, you're going to walk into the bar like, yes, I'm him. What? The guy with the brick.
Yeah, pull out my phone and I go, this is just a screenshot, but if I show you the blockchain, I can verify my ownership.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I dropped my phone. That was just my NFT of a brick. Yeah. I can verify ownership. Your Tinder, like someone's Tinder profile is the verification of ownership.
It links to their fucking wallet. They go, check this out. Oh, no, I forgot my seed phrase.
Yeah, so it's very possible that that's true, but I don't know. It is. I feel like I do get it, so I think it could go one way or the other.
Oh, that's all this crypto bullshit. It's like either it's going to the moon or a lot of people are losing houses.
Yeah, my body. I have so many friends that like I kind of been making some videos about this stuff too. But there's like I have like so many friends that are essentially broke. And they're messaging like every day being like, yo, you have to buy this coin, this and this. Like, it's always like, no, not financial advice. You have to buy. And then And then the next day, like everything tanked. When we knew it was going to tank, me and my buddy Danny were saying, he was messaging one of our buddies who's a comedian who's a moron. He was our buddy JJ, who's also a moron, was messaging me being like, hey, me and that dude got together to do technical analysis of the stock charts. We're like, this is over tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just two of the biggest idiots looking at charts and graphs, like predicting what's happening with crypto.
Dude, that's such a good indicator. I remember not this most recent crash, the previous crash when Luke and I worked in radio. This is when I should have sold. I walked into the radio office and Luke and we saw the sales team and the customer service team both looking at Bitcoin charts. That's when I should have sold. When the office workers who have never thought about crypto in their life are refreshing the price while they should be working. Should have got out. And that deciding not, when I saw that and went, oh, everyone's into it, it's going to go up. That's what cost me a lot of money.
And you know when he sold, Lewis is smart. You know when he sold the first time, and you are bloody welcome for this. I'm an idiot, right? And one day I came in and I was like, this is like 6 months ago. I was like, boys, thinking of getting into the crypto game. And then Lewis and Keelan were just like, fuck this, and just sold everything.
You bought their shares.
Yeah, Luke's holding my bags right now.
Yeah. And then I didn't get into the crypto game because yeah, I forgot.
That's the oldest, I think it was Warren Buffett or whatever, but when the shoe shine boy starts telling you about stock picks, that's when you knew it was going to crash.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to the next thing I want to do on the show. Luke, would you like to buy my brick?
Absolutely not.
Fuck.
$1. Have you sold an NFT?
Yeah, I've sold. I made a real talk, like a video on my Instagram, like trashing NFTs, and then I turned that into an NFT, and then a bunch of people bought it, and then I used that money to buy the brick.
How much? So you made $1,000 selling this video?
Yeah. Because I sold it, and then the price of Ethereum went up, which was what people bought it with. So it's like some weird growth hack where you buy an NFT with crypto, and then if the NFT goes up in price, but then also the currency you purchased it with goes up in price, it's like double growth.
Does our show still? Lewis last year was putting our joint money into crypto on the show, right? Without consulting me. What?
Yeah.
Is there an update on that? Do we still have money in Ethereum? Because we sold the Doge.
No, we still have the Doge.
Right.
Yeah.
What's that worth now? Has that gone down? Is that why you haven't talked to me about it? Because you've lost it all?
Any day that's gone back to the moon, though.
Yeah. Let me have a look. I haven't looked at it for a while.
This is the thing, Ryan, is I have to deal with this man who's obsessed with like all this stuff. I have like no interest in it. So then he gets my money because he knows I don't care. And then he just puts it, he goes, no,
our money.
Well, it's half my money. And he just puts it into shit. And then when it goes up, he doesn't shut up about it. And then when it goes down, I haven't got an update for 4 months. Which means
it's on the ones that are doing good. You're like, what happened to our $10,000 of Doge? You're like, the brick has doubled.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I'm like, man, I'm making heaps on bricks. I might turn this brick into a real brick house. But all that other stuff, bro, that's my mortgage gone. Looking at the Doge, we put $1,000 into Doge at the start of the year, and mate, great news. After it tanked to like 300, it's now worth 800, so we're almost back to zero.
Almost back. Hell yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, how's the tour going, Ryan?
Now, you've been away. I did like maybe 3 weekends and then 6 one-nighters. It was cool though. I'm like in New York. When I did the weekend here, I sold like almost 1,000 tickets. So that was
wow.
Basically, you know what the funny part is, and I don't know if it's like that there, but the clubs, the big thing is everyone wants you to do weekends as opposed to one-nighters, right? So in a lot of places, I'm at the point where like a one-nighter is sick. Like if I do a 250 place, I sell it out and it's like sick. Maybe you add a second one that maybe you do 2, but it's always like the better deals are if you can do the 6 nights, and there's not enough people to sell out clubs as there is clubs with shows. So it's everyone's, making offers for that. But then you go from a guy who's doing all sold out shows to a guy who's you know, like I did Florida, for example, and sold, I think it was like 300 tickets and I did 7 shows. So it's like, you know, whatever, plus whatever walk up. But I remember the guy was calling, it was like some tiny town in Florida. It's 30,000 people. I remember the guy calling being, the agent was like, hey, could you post more about this, blah, blah. And I was like, how many tickets did they sell? It was like 300 and 350 or something. And I was like, this phone call should be like, holy shit, you sold 350 tickets in this town. But it's like the system's forcing you to, so I think I might have to rejig that a little bit. But in general, it's been awesome. And just even, I like hang out with everyone after the show, like every night. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool to even do that. Yeah, and it seems like when you're on the internet, it sometimes just seems so like negative, and you start thinking like, are my fans this or what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you hang out with them, and you're just like, oh, these are all just very normal people, and blah blah.
Well, yeah, because
that's what I find as well.
Sometimes like you'll make a video.
I have really young fans, like I guess, like how old are you? Like my fans, I'm only 25, so I get a lot of like people who are like, you know, 18 to 25.
Yeah,
like that's
everyone's fans. Yeah, is them a little younger. I think most of mine are probably college to 20, college to 30 sort of thing.
Yeah,
and yeah, but a lot of like college people, a lot of people that are, you know, 25, 26, a lot of that, but a decent amount of 30, pretty good mix because they all know you from something different, you know?
It's funny to me that you were like 30,000 is like a really small town. That is a small town here still, but I've been doing like those for the last 2 weeks, like just towns that have like 40, 50,000 people. Yeah, I mean, because there's only 5, we were talking about
this 5 cities, bro.
You guys can do 50-day tours of like cities. We have 5 cities, and even still like Hobart sells like shit really compared to everywhere else. Like Tasmania is the island one down the bottom. Like that doesn't sell like a city does in. But even still, like how many people are in your cities? Like our cities are like 1 million people.
No, you can really like tour forever here if you want to. You know what I mean?
There's enough. I'm so jealous.
There's put it this way. There's at least 50 places, so you could easily, or you know, or not 50. Sorry, like 350 places that actually are almost markets.
Because that like that's also like in Australia. If we have 5 cities, you could do like a solid 30 or 40 day tour, right? And that's like everywhere in the country, pretty much. But that means also if you do that, you need a brand new hour the next year, because otherwise people are going to see the same shit. Whereas in America, if you have 300 cities, you could do the same hour for like 3 years and then slowly work on it. Whereas in Australia, sometimes it's a bit of a scramble.
Do you do that? Like, you don't do a new hour every year?
Yeah. We've both, Luke and I, have been doing an hour every year since we started.
System.
That's the way our festival system works.
Yeah, that's
every
the system
comedian.
there.
It's kind of dumb. Like I'm thinking of after next year's one having a year off, because I found like my show was so much better this year because of COVID.
Yeah.
So we all got cancelled last year, obviously, like 2020. And in that year off, like I didn't write that much in lockdown, but like I just felt like I had more time. I wasn't scrambling to get the new hour. So I felt like the once every second year system is great. I'm thinking of once the world gets back, doing 1 year in Australia, touring that, and then heading overseas and like doing a few shows. There's like New Zealand, the UK, maybe America. I don't know how you get a visa there, but I'll figure it out.
You can get a visa easily.
Yeah. Ryan was helping me out with it before COVID happened.
Yeah, you gotta do it. Yeah, the 01 visa, you guys could get no problem.
Yeah.
Well, you're not even lying. It's like you just apply, you have all the stuff, and you have the actual tour dates. Like there's not, you know.
Yeah. I thought you had to get like an extraordinary talent one or something like that.
Yeah,
that's what that is.
Stuff like you have a big audience. You have like, for example, you need to here would be one example of a thing that you need. There's 10 categories. You only need to have 2 of them, and one of them is like you've won an award. One of them is people in your field think
the loogies.
What's the loogies? Oh,
that's our award show.
We have our own Luke and Lewis award show.
We want a loogie.
Yeah,
dude, people put the most bullshit awards on their thing. One of them is like you've made a lot of a decent amount of money in your field, and then you know, like literally more than 30 grand a year is you would.
Well, it's just a filter to go if you come here, will you pay tax? Money, basically.
Yeah, but you don't even. With the 01, you're not a resident. You don't have to pay taxes.
Okay, I'm filling it out tomorrow.
Yeah, you don't pay taxes in America when you have an 01. It's only if you get a green card. But I mean, if you're going to be back and forth and all that stuff, like there's not really any difference. There is a few tiny differences, but if you're not planning on you could do that, and if you after 3 years then apply for your green card.
I think that's what both of us kind of want to do. I definitely want to get to New York, because I was in New York for like 1 week and LA for 1 week, and I met all of these incredibly amazing comedians and made all these connections. And I'm like, if I just do this like 3 times a year or whatever, even if it's for 2 weeks, it would be super helpful. And then, collaborating and doing podcasts in person and just getting to do actual clubs. Because we have, in our country, we've got 3 clubs, I think, in the country.
That's crazy.
We have like 4 or 5, but yeah.
I know a lot of Canadians that go and do the run in Australia. Like they always say there's money to be made in just kind of being a comedian that's touring that doesn't even have an audience.
Oh yeah, if you're in Australia, if you're not Australian, you'll sell tickets.
Oh.
Our Australians like still have that thing in them where they go, wow, he has an accent. Like if you talk about coming off,
I don't have an accent. You guys have accents.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're normal. We're weird.
It's so funny. Like people will like, there's comedians who live here, right, but pretend to be American. Like they'll do the gala and be like, man, you Australians like do this and you're animals. And I'm like, dude, I know where you live. I see you as kids.
That's so funny.
It's hilarious because they've just made careers here.
That's wild. Can you imagine the other way around? Like a guy in America putting on a fake Australian accent and be like, Americans are stupid.
Yeah. No. The people
is
are
American
who come
but they've
over.
lived here for decades.
There's just Americans that have come over in like the 90s and then gone, I'm going to set up shop here because they love it.
I know some, that go there a lot, and some of them that just stay there, like the one guy was telling you in the COVID prison. But yeah, I mean, for me, Toronto, I've done a lot of stuff there, but when I came here, it feels like, for me, what I described it as, it felt like taking ankle weights off.
Yeah, I feel like that's absolutely what I felt as well. Because also, even like, obviously there's more opportunities and more clubs and more paying things and whatever. There's all that shit, which is amazing. But then also, I felt when I did 2 club sets, I felt the audience was just so much more educated on how to be an audience than like a lot of other places I've been. Like if you go to a regional Australian town, sometimes people are like, oh, are we allowed to make noise? Like, can we laugh, or
they don't know what
we
it
have
is.
to be quiet?
So I've been doing regional Queensland these last 2 weeks, which is like about as some people would say as rough as it gets. It's not that bad, right? People talk it up. But my opener will be like, all right, who's seen comedy before? And like 25% of the crowd will cheer. And they're like, all right, who's never seen comedy before? And then 75% of the crowd will be like, most of my people who come to my shows from the internet, it's the first ever comedy show because they're like 18 and nothing ever comes to their town.
Comedy's like an American thing, like originally, right? So maybe it's more like embedded in the culture. But yeah, is it more sort of? I've seen even some of like you guys and your friends posting clips, and sometimes it almost seems like a college party. Sometimes even more than a show, Like sometimes it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like people went to that show to like party almost, like they.
Yes.
Maybe,
Yeah, like there'll be some people, like some shows you go to, especially in regional towns, people will spend like more time at the bar than but they'll watch from the bar, like while they're queuing up. They'll just kind of turn around and be like, all right. And then they'll just happily order. Whereas in cities, like everyone's there for the show, but in towns, they're kind of there because like, I fucking like this guy, but I like beer.
Yeah. And then in clubs in America, they're like, you must drink. There's a 2-drink minimum. And people are like, I just want to see the jokes, man. I don't want to drink. It's very different.
In Australia, they're like, 2, is that all? They're like, maybe before the show. And then once the show starts.
Oh, thank God. I thought you said maximum.
Yeah.
I was, I always like, even on tour this last round, I was having a few times where you're like, everyone comes to see you and it's very cool. And then you have a guy arguing with a waitress, and then someone's ordering food and picking up their checks and all this stuff. And you're just like, this is the dumbest art form. Like what other thing? Has that kind of bullshit while the show's happening? Like,
it's so true. Like you go see like a theater show, like a musical, and no one's ever just getting up and going, oh, sorry, no, I'm coming through.
Paying for their checks and ordering too. It's like, it's just such like a clown profession, right?
But it is, yeah.
But I do more writing spots in the city. I'm getting better at trying to be better at like writing when you're doing headliners sets. But for me, I'm like, my system that I developed forever, that I'm trying to, modify, but is way, way more like 3-4 spots a night, 10-minute sets, same joke,
Fuck.
you know,
That's
like
so
that
cool.
kind of stuff. Writing 2 hours in the morning, doing, you know, the first show, hopefully, you know, the 6th or whatever, do all stuff you kind of thought of that day, you know, weed it out by the 2nd, by the 4th show, hopefully you have like 1 or 2 little things that are working by the end of the night, and kind of repeat that process forever. But yeah,
that's impossible to do.
Yeah,
here.
that's the
I
thing.
think the
That
most
in
gigs,
one night's probably about a week's worth of gigs, like proper club gigs here, if you're not touring.
the most, like sometimes I'll do 3 of my own shows in a night, and that's like the most stage time.
you guys writing an hour a year then? It's crazy.
It's just natural.
I only tour with like 35, 40 minutes of material and just do a lot of crowd work, because that's what like
that's
what goes viral and makes people come to my shows and stuff. So I just talk to the crowd a lot, and it's also there's less pressure as well, because a festival show here only goes for 50 minutes pretty much. So like because there's like they do new shows every hour, but a 10-minute turnover between
50's enough.
So I only tour like 35, 40. And once you have like a good 20 and then you do it a bunch, that turns into 30. You keep adding little tags and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I was saying? I do the opposite, where I'll be in the city and it's all like whittling, right? Getting rid of every last word. And then you kind of hit the road and it's almost easier. So I would go, I'm like, oh, that's like you know what? That's a 1-minute joke, I think. Then I'd go to the road and I'd be like, maybe this is a 2-minute joke. Yeah. And then I'd come back to the city. I'm like, no, I was right. It's 1 minute.
Yeah.
On the road, you're adding all this extra stuff and it's killing. And you come back to the city and you're like, yeah, I know I was right the first time. Those not that great.
Yeah, my audience was doing some lifting there, you know.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's also why that's why the greatest comics are American, because there's just a natural skill gap. Like there's a limit to how much you can train in other countries because you can't do that many gigs in a night.
Couldn't you just like, you need to have someone that just starts a club in the city that has 3 shows a night, and then you do 2 or 3 shows.
But
right?
it's not as like
it's not a showcase.
Our biggest city has 6 million or 7 million people in it. Most of our cities have 2 million people in it.
That's what Toronto is. Toronto has like a couple.
I think there is room for like if it was like 100, 120 seats. I think there is room for something like that.
50.
I mean, something did start up recently in Melbourne, the Republic Bar or whatever it's called.
Yeah, there's a few going around. It's just like there's also so many comedians where we're from. Like there's quantity. Like it's hard to get spots. Like
that's true. And also,
quantity over quality. The gigs. There's so many shitty open mics. Like there's so many. If you want to go perform to 3 people and 10 comedians, you could do 20 gigs a night.
Yeah,
that makes you worth sometimes.
I really believe that. Like sometimes you'll do a spot in front of comedians and there'll be three normal punters, like normal audience members, and like if the comedians are laughing and the punters aren't, you're like, man, I'm crushing. I'm like, you're actually getting worse, because that is not what a normal person thinks is funny.
Dude, whenever I write a joke and comedians laugh, I scrap the joke. I'm like, fuck that. But whereas a lot of comedians will be like, I'm crushing. Let's work on that. So my friends laugh.
Crushing your dreams, bro.
Yeah, but I was talking about with Lewis. I realized I'm one of 3 comedians touring the country at the moment because of COVID. Everyone else is pretty much trapped in Sydney and Melbourne. I see the same 3 people in every poster whenever I go. They're like,
Luke's had a combination of luck, but also going through hell to pull off the shows.
I had to go to hotel quarantine, and I've had to live out of where I live for like a month, just in hotels while I'm also paying rent at home. It's brutal.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's right.
I saw a thing that was, we were laughing because it said you're only allowed to leave the quarantine if you have a really good reason or something like that. And we were loving the idea of like, obviously the only really good reason is pussy. Like, Bob knows you have a really good reason. Like, all right, let me see the photo. I don't know if this is a really good reason. Size of those titties.
But no, it's weird here at the moment. I think everything next year will get back to normal, but that's what we said last year. So there's a bit of that
that literally is. I don't know. I think honestly it's 6 more months, but hopefully, you know.
Well, me and Lewis were talking about this like a while ago, but right near the beginning of the pandemic, like the first 6 months, it was really cool at least for me, like I was less like, you know, had my old YouTube system and podcast system figured out. So it was good to have 6, months to really treat that like a full-time job and get the system down. But it is like now that I'm out doing stand-up and touring, like I was just saying when I was on the road, like it is tough to manage. I even see like the way you guys do it. It's always, you were still putting out like reels and separate TikTok videos. Like, you know, I guess, I don't know if do you systemize it where you're like, I'm going to do 2 of these a week, or is it just kind of as you go? It's just always like,
I've pretty much given up on YouTube. Lewis does it better. I mean, that's because I've been on the road. It's so hard, as you know, to like turn around stuff while you're on the road. Like I just film every show and upload stand up now. And that's all I can do. Pretty much now it's all stand up. When I get back, I'll probably start doing some YouTube stuff as well.
Yeah.
But between trying to keep up with podcasts and stand up, that's it. I'm up till 2 a.m. every night trying to do that shit.
And it's all, that's why you do a lot of crowd work, because you just get a ton of clips and that's the stuff that goes.
Also,
I don't want to
like,
burn the material.
You kind of have to treat what I've kind of figured out with my stuff. You kind of have to treat your content as like its own little TV channel. Like, you need a team of, like, I just hired someone full time to come on board, and Keelan's working part-time with me as well. So there's like, you know, between the two of them, 8 days of work plus the stuff that I'm doing to pump out the amount of content that I want to do.